Okay, lot. So today we will be reviewing the new unit XIANG, right? I don't know if I'm pronouncing her right, but yeah, this unit came out in the most recent patch yesterday, right? It came along Machina, right? But Machina being a featured banner unit, and XIANG is a 4-star alongside it, right? So she is a water type unit. She's a water type defense, not defense, but like a debuffer, breaker, if they want to call it like that, right? And has to play all around like various debuffs that she has in her kit. So if we look at her kit real quick, basic attack, nothing special. First skill, remove 2 debuffs from a single ally. Second skill, deal damage to all enemies and inflict silence on them. By the way, these skills are all maxed out. As you can see, I have everything fully maxed out. The ultimate, AoE damage and 90% chance to put enemies to sleep, and on her passive she increases debuff resistance. Alright? Okay, so first of all, let's review a bit of her PvE performance that I found, right? And for reference, this is the equipment that I've tested her with, right? You can see stats. Essentially, I just took, I believe, Shooting runes on her, right? So I placed that on her. I placed the Rememento that increases damage taken, because again, for debuffers, that's pretty much like the only use for the Rememento there is. And yeah, for her skills, right, basic attack, nothing special, right, just a regular hit based on attack. First skill, right, remove 2 debuffs from a single ally. Now the problem with this skill is that pretty much everywhere where you would use XIANG, and if you are able to add a Chloe to your team, right, because in a lot of PvE cases you will need a sort of like a sustain / healer in your team. There's very few options for that. You can either go Chloe, Lilia, which isn't that amazing of a healer when it comes to just regular healing, right, and Siri. So yeah, in most cases, majority of the people will be using Chloe as their healer, and because she does have a passive which dispels 1 debuff with a 100% chance from all allies once skilled up, in a lot of cases this will be more than enough cleansing for your whole team, right? So yeah, that first ability, unfortunately, it falls off really badly, keeping in mind that for Chloe's cleanse it doesn't even cost any mana. For this it does. So yeah, there's I mean, it does have use, but I feel like the use is very limited, which unfortunately just makes this ability not good at all, right? Now for her second skill, this is an AoE damage ability, and it has a 65% chance to apply silence to all enemies, right? Now when it comes to debuffs, in a lot of cases, I would say in those conditions where it is very critical to apply a debuff for the run to succeed, right, silence, like, it's a good debuff. It works on majority of the content, right? It works on bosses and stuff like that. The problem with silence is when it comes to bosses, right, a lot of bosses still have very strong basic attacks, right? For example, the Nuska Dragon, right, which is primarily where you would use units like this, right, because you're obviously not gonna use it against bosses that are wind element, since she simply won't be able to apply the effects easily. So for fire, for example, if we're looking at the Nuska boss, you can apply the silence. However, the dragon still has an AoE ability on his basic attack, which honestly almost makes no difference whether he attacks with a mana using skill or not. The silence simply won't be able to prevent much of his offensive abilities, right? Plus, on top of that, it's only a 65% chance to land, which means that in a lot of scenarios where it's critical to land, keep in mind you're gambling 65%, which is, I would say, to be very consistent, 80% is probably the minimum in a lot of PvE content. 65% chance to land silence, right, which is only 2 every 3 hits, right? On top of that, if you do pass the 65% chance gamble there, you're also gambling with the effect accuracy and resistance check, which can drop the success rate of that debuff landing even lower. And yeah, honestly, there's a lot of resistance checks, there's the chance to land the silence is simply a little bit too low for me to justify using her in PvE content. Plus it also costs 2 mana for this, and if you want to have like a silent sort of effect, right, another option that you can use, especially for like PvE stuff, is Provoked. It's essentially like the same attack as Silence, right? Silence prevents using mana, and Taunt essentially forces the boss to use a basic attack, which again, it's essentially the same thing. And as you can see, there are units that do it much better, 10% higher chance for Provoke, right? Also only costs 1 mana and stuff like that. So for PvE stuff, again, Silence, it's AoE, but in majority of PvE content is gonna be like single target bosses only. So yeah, I don't see much use for Silence, but it can be clutch in some situations, right? And then we have the ultimate. So currently I believe the ultimate is bugged. They did mention that sleep has a little bit of a weird interaction, right? Where if your allies move, for example, if all of your allies are slept, but for example Diana isn't, right? If she uses her third skill, all of the units will wake up, right? That's a bug. They are addressing it in the upcoming patch, but yeah, in an ideal scenario, when that is fixed, essentially sleep will be a hard CC effect which will disappear whenever that unit takes damage. However, the cool chance, or rather the cool thing about sleep in this game, right, which is a bit different from any other game that I've seen, is that yes, the units will wake up whenever they get hit. However, look at this, there's a second part. Upon hit, and damage other than misses is applied as critical hits. So that means when you are attacking a sleeping target, your critical hits will be guaranteed at 100%, right? This allows for some interesting interactions, right, where you can build a unit with pretty much 0 critical rate and have very, very high critical damage and maximize on the damage that way. The problem is, again, for a hard CC effect, it's only 90%, so there can be some misses, right? Also, because she is a water unit, you will have a lot of trouble dealing with wind units, and when it comes to PvP, Diana is gonna be one of those units that will be missed a lot, right? Just talking from experience. But overall, for PvE, I don't see the sleep mechanic working too well. However, now that we look at PvP, this has potential to be a very, very strong combo. I would say when it comes to PvP, right, this is sort of like a very similar unit in my opinion to Theodore, right, because both of them are able to deny the enemy from using MP skills, right? Also with his third skill, damage to all enemies, 90 or 80% chance to provoke all of them. Again, very sort of similar thing when it comes to PvP, right? Like whether you sleep them, whether you provoke them, the enemies are essentially not gonna be able to do much, right? But that sleep does have a little bit of a cooler interaction, which we can jump into PvP and test it out, right? And yeah, overall, I've experimented with some teams in PvP, right? Unfortunately, the thing with XIANG is, right, it's still gonna be a very Libertas-based PvP meta, because unfortunately her base speed is not high enough to a point where she can decrown Libertas of her top spot, right? If the base speed was higher, I would say there is potential to be better than Libertas as an opener, but for now, because her base speed is relatively much lower than Libertas, it's still gonna be a PvP game based around Libertas taking the first turn, right? Now you can build some sort of like sustain based teams or stuff like that. That's gonna be like a very niche team, which I feel like you will have a little bit of trouble pulling off. But if you do build a team, for example, something like a very tanky based team, I know one user in the Korean server uses a very cool team like that. If you look at the defense, essentially this is a team that he also... Wait, he attacked me. This is also a team that he uses for offense, right? This is sort of like a team that can counter a lot of these speed teams, but then again, keep in mind that a lot of these battles are gonna be taking ages, right? Because it banks on you stacking up the damage up effects, it banks on you surviving for a long time. So you can make niche teams like that and plop in XIANG in there for some extra CC, right? But if we're looking at meta teams, the 3 units you see right here at the end are gonna be sort of like the meta units. So Libertas is a must. Diana, you can opt her out, but she does so much in terms of attack bar boosting instead of damage boosting, mana sustain, that it will be very difficult to replace her. And the third one, it doesn't have to be Sion, it can be any other damage dealer that you have, but yeah, you will want to have a damage dealer in there. So the fourth slot is the one that's somewhat flexible, so you can put quite a few units. For me, my favorite so far is Priscilla. You can put a Machina in there for some extra damage, extra attack gauge boosting, right? You can put in even free-to-play options where you can just boost up like attack, Pluto, stuff like that, right? And in a way, from what I've been using, Theodore was a really good option, and as I mentioned, Theodore was a somewhat similar unit to XIANG, I'd say, and yeah, in a team like this, XIANG does have some use as well. So you want to use her, especially in PvP from what I found, you want to use her as sort of like a faster option than your DPS, because it will be a bit difficult to push your DPS to very high speeds, right? But if you do have a XIANG, or if you do have a Theodore in this case, right, they are able to move third, they are able to apply CC effects to all enemies, and this allows your DPS unit to be much slower, and in turn you can stack much more damage. Plus, if you remember, because when units wake up, their next hit will be a guaranteed critical hit, you can build a lot of damage with that. So it's sort of like a indirect boost to your DPS damage, right? And if you look at this, right, just to give you an example how much crit rate you can lose and how much other stats you can gain on your damage, right? Like my DPS unit currently has 94% crit rate. Look at how many substats it takes in order to get not even full 100% critical rate. All 4 substats into critical rate, all 4 into critical rate, no critical here unfortunately, but 3 substats critical rate, 3 substats critical rate, and 1 substat critical rate here, right? It takes a lot of critical rate and a lot of upgrades on gear to get to that high critical rate, and imagine if you could remove all of the critical rate and replace it for something like crit damage, replace it for attack, replace it for speed, right? There's a lot of potential to use with a specialized team with XIANG. However, if you do build low critical rate, you will run into an issue where you sort of need to either use it with XIANG or the unit will be unusable, because let's be real, even if you use Pluto, if your DPS unit has 20% critical rate, even with the Pluto's boost, it will be unusable in any other PvE con, right? But yeah, let's try out the XIANG in PvP, right? I have dropped a bit, I believe some of my defense was unruined, but yeah, we'll see how we can make it work. So luckily I am able to outspeed the enemy here. Another problem I found with XIANG is mana issues, right? Unfortunately, she is a debuffer unit, which means you are not able to equip the mana Rememento on her, right? Whereas I was able to do that with Priscilla or Machina. So yeah, in this case, I'm not sure if I will CC Diana, right? Because as you know, as I told you, Diana, the skill is currently bugged, and yeah, as you can see, when Diana uses the ability, she will wake up all of the units. This shouldn't happen, right? It will be fixed, but for now that's the case. But yeah, essentially, you sleep your units, you allow them to move. Let's say, like, imagine Diana didn't wake up in that case. All of the units, like my Sion did outspeed them still, right? But even if he didn't outspeed them, they would just be falling asleep. My Sion would be able to easily cycle the moves and yeah, easily win the fight, right? So yeah, let's just finish the fight real quick. Okay, boost up, and my Sion should be able to nuke. There we go. Let me see if I can attack and we can actually maybe not get resisted by Diana. Okay, actually this could be pretty good, I think. Because, oh, okay, that leader does outspeed, but I will outspeed her afterwards, so we still have a chance here. Okay, so I move, we quickly CC all of them. Diana moves, and then hopefully I think one of his units is unruined though. Yeah, I think his Theodore is unruined. Okay, so we sleep. Will it sleep the Monica? Will it sleep the Monica? Didn't even sleep Libertas, you know? Ooh. Yeah, that's a bit of a downside of XIANG compared to something like Theodore, right? And that is the fact that it is a water unit, so it's gonna have a lot of trouble with wind units, as you can see. And on top of that, it's not 100% chance either. So if you're relying on that critical sleep to win, it can be a bit problematic. And as you can see, like the meta is currently very Libertas and Diana based. So maybe we can try something like this. I'm not sure if I can outspeed him. There's no wind unit in here. No, unfortunately I'm not, but my Diana, so I might be able to cut in. You know what we can do? I was thinking, you know what, no, this might work out. I boost Libertas, is that gonna be enough? It is. It's gonna be a bit of a scuffed team, but look at this, if the sleep works out, right? Technically I can take a lot of turns here. Okay, Libertas not CC, but that's not a problem. Libertas is not exactly too scary. But look at this. Now, a lot of the units are asleep. And I can freely just try to pull this back, you know. Not gonna use Sion's skill yet. Yeah, I won't. So let's just basic attack for now. Libertas attack, not scary at all again. And yeah, I mean, I prefer to keep them asleep. I prefer to keep them asleep for now. They will wake up next turn. I can boost up with my Diana. Jeremiah. Okay, Jeremiah doesn't move. And now I believe I can actually just wipe with Sion. Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, as you can see, like, you can clutch up in some cases, right? For example, my Diana was luckily enough to resist, and in that case, like Libertas moving right after, I would simply not have enough mana. But with XIANG, you are sort of able to like pull through in some scenarios. I don't know, it's like very niche unit in my opinion, right? Very niche. Okay, this one I'll just straight up lose, so I would prefer to quit this. But yeah, I don't know. The scenario where I do see her being useful, right? Okay, I mean, they didn't CC me, so I could try to maybe pull this through. You know what? This might be possible, right? This might be possible, because if I just sleep them... Please don't miss. There we go, we didn't miss. Okay, so the unit we can freely attack would say would be Libertas in this case. She won't be able to do much in my opinion. We can do something like... Do I slow or do I Libertas? I think I'm gonna try to slow if possible. Okay, Sasha moves, no problem there. Okay, basic attack, not an issue. They are still asleep, so I might as well keep them asleep. I don't exactly want Beatrice to be attacking me just yet. Okay. I could technically do this and then just sleep them again. There we go. What I'm getting at here, right? With the playstyle, especially if you're someone who tried to play some turn-based games before, right, this is very like real-time arena based gameplay, right? This is not team comp that you use for like regular arena. And yeah, see, unfortunately that's the bug, right? I would have easily won this. The problem is because any buff that you apply instantly wakes up the units. Yeah, that will be fixed, so I would be able to just keep poking the what's it called, Ferency there, and eventually finish off the Beatrice. But yeah, where I do see her being useful, like extremely useful, is real-time arena, right? I think in real-time arena she's gonna be an absolute monster, because real-time arena, it will be difficult to pull off like specific team comps, because the enemies might steal your units, the enemies might ban your units, right? So a lot of the units that we currently use in arena may not be the best, and a lot of the units that are good individually, right, that units that have very stacked kits by themselves will be very meta. So units like Diana, units like Ravi, right, units like, I feel like even Priscilla are gonna be like very strong in real-time arena, XIANG being one of them, right? With a skill like this, like even if you don't have a team comp build, right, even if you don't have any sort of like plan going in, just applying an ultimate like this to the enemy team is gonna be like a massive game changer in a fight, right? And that's where I feel like she will really shine when real-time arena comes out. So yeah, at the moment, PvE, unfortunately I don't see any use for her. PvP, you can make some niche comps like that. You can alleviate some gear from your DPS unit and put it on more like attack and crit damage based stats, and not caring about critical rate as much. And by the way, I did test it out. It does work with multi-hits as well, right? It doesn't, the guaranteed critical chance doesn't apply just to the first hit, it applies to all of the hits. So for example, even with my Sion being on low critical rate, it will add critical chance, like 100% critical chance to all of his hits. So yeah, overall at the moment, PvE not good, PvP very niche if you can build a sleep comp around her. And for real-time arena, when that comes out, I think she is gonna be one of the strongest units out there, right? So definitely no need to summon for her for now. If you do get her, you do get her, but yeah, at the moment not that great. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this short little review of XIANG. I do have a longer review about Machina coming up. I have tested her a bit more in PvP and PvE, and yeah, stay tuned for that, and peace.